good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Echo 4. It's your boy, the Mad Prince. I'm going to be your moderator for today. I'm joined by the homies. Go ahead and introduce yourselves one time.
I'm Booty Monique. Hi, y'all.
Yo, it's your boy Kensan.
And it's your girl Drea.
All right, so what's happening here is Yasuke, that anime that came out that tells the story of the first black samurai.
That's it.
And
I don't know if it tells.
Again, and as you can clearly see, we have opinions on the series itself. So usually we try to be analytical and thoughtful and insightful on our discussions, but I mean, we're all drunk, so this is gonna be sloppy as shit. I'm pretty sure. This is gonna be ratchet as fuck. So you're about to see grade 8 content from Echo 4. So so to kick it off, let's see. How did y'all feel about Yasuke? Each one of y'all.
Damn, who's going first?
Yeah, come on, Will. Decide. Moderator. Who goes first?
Any, many, miny, mo, catch a tiger. But you know what? Just go, Ken. Shit.
Damn it, I had some high hopes. Honestly, there's little times where I will actually have some like expectations for shit, because whenever you have expectations and then they fall short, you get disappointed. So like, all right, I usually never hold expectations, but this time I was like, you know what? This looks a little promising. And now, no, they fucked it up. And yeah, that's This more, they're making more. Okay.
All right. Next.
I'll go
ahead,
next.
Brittany.
Okay. Being that I'm someone that lived in Japan and recently found out about this man while I was living in Japan, I had really high hopes because it was something this was like a historical event that I never knew about, and it had a black person in it in Japan. I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And just how the direction of the show, I was just like, oh wow, y'all really went on this like whole futurism little girl side story quest. I was so disappointed because I feel like the fact that a black man became a samurai in Japan is already a good story. Why the hell are you adding all of these different elements to this? So yeah, I was severely disappointed in how this story turned out, and I was confused on why it turned out this way, because the setup was already there. What the hell are y'all doing? So yeah, I was confused. By the third episode, I was trying to like the show. That's it.
Girl.
Yeah, so Dre, you can go next.
Girl, the third episode you was trying, that's exactly where I fell the fuck off. See, my main beef, not main beef, but impressions that you got from it was from lack of advertisement. Social media carried that shit. So I had a certain level of expectations about how profound and historical it was trying to be. But if y'all had told me it was a LaShawn Thomas product, my expectation would have been low. It reminded me when I watched Nobody's Fool, and I'm like, oh, this sounds nice. But little did I know when I was in theaters that I saw Tyler Perry's name went across the screen. I'm like, wait a minute, what? If y'all had told me this was a Tyler Perry movie, I would not have spent the $5 on $5 Tuesday to see this shit. And I took my mama, so I spent $10 plus tax. If you'd have told
too much
me
on Tyler Perry,
exactly.
Don't waste the $13.50.
Exactly. If you'd have told me, my expectation would have been low to the dirt. Maybe with Little Nas X on going down to Montero low. Maybe I would have had a chance. But I could not get past episode 3. I pushed through for this group. Then I think I fell off at 5 personally.
You was up one episode.
Girl, I tried.
It's like when I saw the first trailer, we watched it. We watched the first trailer. maybe there was like one hint of there like being mech in this. So other than that, or was there any hint? I don't think there really was. So when I watched it, okay, it's just like a historical. It's just like an animated rendition of the first Black Samurai. It was only Black Samurai before. Yasuke, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be cool. It's like going to have really good like samurai fighting animation and everything. But then like 2 or 3 seconds into the first episode, I just see a fucking robot. There's a mech that's flying through and I was like, okay, now I don't know what I'm watching now.
What the hell is this now?
How did we get here?
Okay. Yo, what the fuck did you have me watch? I don't know what this shit was. Like, I don't know if I was getting samurai epic. I didn't know if I was getting fucking like this sort of retro futuristic bullshit. You know what? There's a way to do shit like that. This was not the way. This was not the way, nigga.
Shout out to Mando.
Period.
Not the way.
No, not this way. No.
This is some bullshit, Joe. This is a medley. This is a half-bred medley of fuck shit that I couldn't like. Nigga, why? Yo, you could have committed to one fucking genre. Like, you could have committed to one fucking genre and it would have been fine. Like, clearly,
you want all of them.
And like, clearly, like, Cannon Busters, like, nigga, you're not good at mixing genres, nigga.
all the genres in 6 episodes.
You know what? Let's go to Cannon Busters.
You are not good at mixing genres, Joe. And I'm someone who likes mixing genres. All right, like as someone who like focuses on narrative shit and like that's my shit. What you did here is a medley of fuck shit that you just kind of like had a bunch of ideas on a wall and you threw a dart at it, and wherever the dart landed, you pretty much put it in this fucking show. And now you like, what the fuck? You took a historical shit. You took a historical moment in history that could have been great, and like, and you and you just
it is.
And you basically
Nobunaga.
And you basically did the equivalent of like putting raisins in some shit that just it didn't belong.
Didn't need it. Yeah,
man.
This is all raisins, nigga.
Unnecessary.
This is bullshit. I hate it. I fucking hate it, bro. And
He put raisins in the spaghetti.
Nigga, it's
don't belong.
Shit. Yo, it was a viral shit. Yo, it was a viral recipe made by Dole, you know, the people who do the fruit and shit, called jerk chicken, and it had raisins in it, nigga. That's what this is, nigga. This is jerk chicken with raisins in it, nigga. This is bullshit.
Was the chicken even seasoned?
No, it was not.
Probably wasn't even cooked.
It was not
it was seasoned by the raisin.
It was not seasoned. and the sad truth is, this could have been good, but none of the ideas match at all. Like, yo, you can't present, when you doing these flashbacks and doing like the present day shit, you can't, like, there's no cohesion between the era. I don't know what fucking era this is.
Man.
Just because you put it on screen doesn't mean that's what the fuck we at, nigga. That's not what it is. Like, you say it's 1650, what the fuck ever, though, but nigga, there's mechs going around, nigga. This big ass.
Make that make sense.
They got big ass Russian like werebears and shit.
Right? I'm like, what?
You know what? On the side note,
and they tripping over a black man.
Hold on. I'm not a moderator, and y'all talking over each other. Y'all need a spirit stick.
On the side note, I'm gonna keep it a buck. That Russian chick can get it, but that's just my.
I knew he was gonna say that. I knew it.
That being said, like, yo, there's if you're gonna mix genres, there's a way to do it. Like, I've seen people do it better, and it's like the most simplest idea. His was fucked up, Joe. This is not unique. What you done here, mixing sci-fi, fantasy, and fucking samurai cinema, that's not unique. It's been done before, and it's been done way the fuck better than what's here. So, so man, I don't know what you work, bro. Whatever, I can't even remember Buddy name is. That's how.
LaShawn Thomas.
All right, hey man, well, nigga,
LaShawn,
LaShawn, baby, tune in.
No, nigga. Whatever you working on after this, bro, like, use this as a learning experience, because this was not it. That's real.
Period.
Hey, I got something to say about this whole thing. Is that I'm curious if how much Netflix had an influence on how to tell this story.
Probably too much.
Because yeah, I'm actually curious. I don't want to just say that it's LaShawn's story. He probably I don't know because I don't watch his old stuff. I didn't watch Cannon Buster. If this is great, okay, is this something like the type of storytelling that he is?
I tried to watch it.
I would say with Cannon Busters, I fell off at the middle. At Yasuke,
So
I fell off at the middle. He's just not a strong. He's not a strong storyteller. The problem with Cannon Buster is, even though Cannon Buster is more of his longer project because it was a manga first, and then he had a Kickstarter to make it an anime, and there was like a long period of time where you hear nothing about it, and then boom, is on Netflix. Cannon Buster is much more grounded because he's been working on it for so long. So to have a bit more world building, whatnot. The problem is that, you know, the plot is like getting to point A to point B, and you have a whole bunch of filler with these characters. The thing is, you don't really connect with either of them to actually give a fuck about where they're going. So it feels like you're meandering. But there's not enough Black representation to keep me engaged. They had a vitiligo warriors. You thought I'd be for that shit. Look at me. I'm an inverted panda. You think I'd be down for that shit, and it wasn't enough.
That's okay. That's the first time I heard some shit like that. God damn
it. You know what? Okay.
He just teaches me time and time again that representation is not enough. You just can't have Black faces for face value. You need to have actual content. So with Cannon Buster, for me, I did not connect with any other characters. You had like, what was she? She was like pretty much an android or whatever. She was kind of naive. They all fit certain tropes.
Okay.
But and you also had another side, you know, had another mech for a comedic effect with the same thing he had in Yasuke. So I'm like, damn, nigga, this must be.
And he wasn't funny.
No.
So it's like,
I did not crack up.
He's just not a strong storyteller. And now he had even less episodes, and it's like, it doesn't work.
You know, if someone told him to try to make this like Afro Samurai, I can kind of forgive it to a point, because I mean, it tried to go for that aesthetic and it failed miserably. At least Afro Samurai existed in its own unique world where it just kind of meshed shit together, and it was world building involved in that. But this, man, it was like it was like two different stories were trying to be told at the same time, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, and that doesn't fit for that format, only being 6 episodes. It's just like, what do you think you're gonna tell in 6 episodes? You gotta focus on one thing.
Why is there a mech? Why can't these motherfuckers do magic? I mean,
they never established that.
No,
not grounded.
Right, like even in a 12 episode anime, Joe, they at least spend like what, like
at least a few episodes,
like 1 or 2 episodes, at least 1 or 2 episodes explaining the nature of like how does magic exist? How come these people can use mechs and shit? I think they spent like the total of like 10, maybe 15 seconds explaining shit like that, which didn't make any sense because
they literally just said that like
we're mutants.
Yeah, exactly. We here. Okay.
But with the mechs, this guy came from Europe. I didn't even know the priest had a name until I was reading the subtitles. I'm like, y'all know his name was Abraham?
No. It's like the problem. I didn't know. I was just
like priest with the brass knuckles. So like,
yeah, beating the shit out of a nigga.
They never they didn't focus on any character.
And the fact that he was like a demon, and then it was too much shit.
It was. And it's just like, okay, who are we supposed to like? Obviously, we're supposed to reach for Yasuke, but I feel like we didn't get a chance to know him as a character. Exactly, and his backstories was so rushed, and I was like, this is literally what I feel like most audiences just like, yo, I want to see the backstory. Why? Like, what happened in that time? Like, I know the story of Yasuke, but I wanted to see it displayed.
Yeah, the most that we got was like he was Black and a samurai.
Yeah.
Wait, he was Black and a samurai, and at times faced diversity. That's it.
Like, nigga, we be
hell as old as time for niggas, but okay.
Right. Yeah, I'm like, okay.
And they half-assed Nobunaga Oga's story as well, because like they're trying to showcase him as like an innovator, as like other times, and then keep like they Oh my god,
I'm
they just
like,
didn't push
Nobunaga
anything.
Nobunaga
was on the DL. I'm like, what the fuck?
Down low, down low.
What the fuck just happened? I'm like, yo, cause what was funny was that when they first showed like his mans and shit, like I'm like, who's this pretty motherfucker right here? This
Pretty as fuck.
that look like a woman, but that don't look like a woman. I'm like, oh,
That's his boo.
Don't get me wrong, all inclusive. Do you? It's just like, damn, that shit's so left, and like the whole thing. I'm like, what
just like Alexander
That
the
was
Great.
the opportunity to explore on that too, on like just like sexuality in Japan, because honestly, their society, they kind of just brush over that shit. And Nobunaga was known for being very eccentric. And I just was like, okay, y'all touching on it. Y'all actually touching on it. But it was so breezed through. Like, obviously, we caught the hints. But it was just like, that was something that really played into his character. Or not his character, his personality. That was him.
All right,
and that's why he accepted Yasuke.
All right, what is it? What you got to say, Charlie?
No, a question, because I think part of the problem with Yasuke is that it isn't about Yasuke at all, but the romanticization of a samurai, of a black samurai.
Yeah,
it doesn't have shit to do with Yasuke. After a while, the story had nothing to do with Yasuke at all, but with Saki. After a while, he was just a guide for a horse story.
He was just a boatman.
So I'm just wondering, as in like for you guys who actually finished the anime, what was the actual purpose of it?
It was
I do not know.
A story.
I do not know. I watched all episodes.
Yeah,
and I cannot tell you what I walked away from it with. That's because
it's just okay.
It's not so much as indescribable. It's just like, did I walk away with anything? I mean, it just kind of boiled down to like the most. Here's the thing. Like I said, they were trying to tell two different stories. If they wanted to tell the story of Yasuke, they could have did that from the moment he was with that Portuguese salesman up to he was a samurai up until Nobunaga's downfall. Where because that's usually because like historically that's like where his story ends, because they handed him over to some Jesus motherfuckers and then you just never hear from him again. That like historically that's what happened. And then on the other hand, they have this other story of what happens like 20 years after the fact when he's this boatsman and shit, and he gets wrapped up in all this mysticism shit. So like if they had made the story of him being a samurai its own separate thing, I probably feel different. If they made the story about a former black samurai who didn't happen to be Yasuke, who didn't have that backstory, okay, he could have made this in a unique character on its own right, so on and so forth, and having to do with all this mysticism and shit. It could have been fine. It probably would have been mid though, but it wouldn't have been worse than what the overall product was if they if it was separate, if these two things were separate. But that's not what happened here. They tried to mesh so much stuff into it that it's just kind of like it's not cohesive. Things don't make sense. It felt like things were rushed. Nothing was. A lot of stuff wasn't fleshed out, and you really didn't walk away with any. You didn't really walk away with a sort of resolution that would make that like closure. There's no real closure here. It's just,
you didn't get to walk away. It just ended, and it was like, okay.
Really? Okay, how did it end it? I am not about to sit through this last damn episode. I'm not.
Right, so they killed what, the feudal lord or some shit, who ends up being like this old ass spider bitch. And so the thing is, like, she feeds on magic or some shit, and the little girl has magic. So it's the feudal lord's attempt to feed on the little girl's magic in order to extend her longevity. It's like really generic shit. And
very generic.
But yeah,
that's too much. So, it's only 6 episodes. You had us thinking that Abraham was gonna be your villain, but no, it's some other Zabumafu in the deep background that was there since day one.
And the thing is, Abraham could have been the villain if they wanted to go that route, because why was he historically he could have been the villain, because the Crusaders were there. So like that could have been something they could have explored
you just
brought
way too quickly.
But you just brought them these people, the Russian werebitch, and all these other people, just to be assistants for the final boss, who we don't even know, let alone give a fuck about.
They weren't even assistants. Most of them even died at the end, bro.
Exactly, like you was just there.
They're just going for a paycheck.
But I'm like, I don't even have the heart when you died. Like I saw the werebitch died, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but you already saw that coming the moment she decided to all of a sudden to stay behind. Like, oh no, I'll hold them off as much, so like, you guys keep going. Like
it was so stereotypical.
Just the nonchalant. Okay, I'm going to sacrifice myself because that's going to drive this plot that has no. That's the only way you can drive it forward because them. Yeah, because like it just makes
and also like Japan was like notoriously isolationist, so it's kind of weird seeing that many foreigners at once
and then be okay together. With that to a sense. And then, but at the same time, they're so displaced by the fact that there's this black guy here. Yeah, he's the most. I feel like he's the most normal one out of fucking werewolf and robots and shit. So.
I hate the scene where they're like, this nigga speaking Japanese, the nigga speaking Japanese. This nigga speaks Japanese.
Let me say this. Like that shit was irritating the fuck out of me. If you want to make us as an audience believe that this man can speak Japanese and just have it in like English dub, fine. That's totally fine. We all like just suspend disbelief that he's speaking Japanese. But the fact that they brought that to the forefront is just like, oh wow, he speaks Japanese. Why wouldn't he speak Japanese when he lives in Japan? Like it made no sense. And like that's the type of shit I was just like, and I kept turning to like Aaron. I was just like, why are they bringing that to the forefront? Like obviously he will speak Japanese living in Japan. He's been in Japan. He's been a samurai.
It was so spoon-fed even from the beginning. I was born with black skin. I am not dirty. And I'm like,
nigga, God. We know you're black.
Well, you know what? Historically, that actually did happen.
I mean, that makes sense. But how he delivered the line, which we can talk about Lakeith, acting, it was so, I guess, matter of fact, so nonchalant and straightforward. And I'm like, oh, damn, we're going to spoon feed us this shit. Okay.
Like, you know what is even like troubling for me? It's just knowing that they were adults and they were like, after, the initial shock of him having black skin and going to scrub him and all that stuff. And, whoa, wow, that's his skin. I was just like, all right, y'all. Like Nobunaga was literally ruling like a whole bunch of different places.
Yeah, and then they were at a port which they get imported from foreigners all the time. They see people with different skin colors and other stuff, and then they see, of course, they see the white, the priest, and like, they're not, offset by his white skin, but they're still offset by the black skin. So it's like,
and that's what I was kind of just like, all right, the matter of fact that they were just making it such a big thing,
right? And making black an identity, but we don't know shit about this character. And this character barely have any personality. It's just that he's black. He was a samurai. That's all you need to take away from this shit.
I wanted to know him.
Let me pose a question.
Okay.
All right. Because this ain't the first time we've seen a black samurai in anime. Like, would you consider this version of Yasuke to be a black samurai or a samurai who happens to be black? Because there is a difference. Does his identity define him as a character, or is him being a samurai more important than his racial identity in the context of this show? How they portrayed him.
I mean, is it much of a character?
That's what I'm saying. In this specific rendition of Yasuke, it's like it seemed like it was just a samurai who
happens to be
lost his way, and he just happened to have skin that's darker than there. Like, he wasn't even black. It was just he knew a different language. He was from a different place. But other than that, those two things, we haven't really got much else of his culture of him being black other than that.
And that's what I thought they were going to explore, the fact that he was an African man that had understood or knew his African history and his roots. And I was like, okay, how does that collide with Japanese, like him being in a Japanese like government system, like how does that come together? And it never did come together because Yasuke didn't have an identity outside of just being black. And I was like, well, he obviously he was intelligent enough to know that where he came from, why he's black, his name. Like he was intelligent enough to know all of those things. And that's why it made it kind of like confusing when he comes to Japan and he just like adapts this
so quickly.
this samurai, this persona. And he's like, I'm nobody's slave. I answer to nobody. And I'm just like, but you was literally sucking like Nobunaga's nuts. Like you was just like, oh, Nobunaga just he had a poster of this nigga. And I was just like, okay, like who is Yasuke outside of Nobunaga?
Yeah, you know,
a poster back in the day is not cheap.
Yeah.
Like they never actually put him as a actual character on his own, just somebody attached to somebody else.
Yeah, his values were like really generic. I didn't get a sense of identity, uniqueness from him in general. It was very cookie cutter, and like it seemed like him being black was even a gimmick at this point.
Yep.
Like and that's kind of how it felt. And I was like, man, I am not really invested in this character, but I kind of want to see where this story goes. And it didn't really go anywhere.
It was eventually like it turned. So one thing I saw when watching the rest of it is like I saw inspiration that they may have gotten from other media, like especially superhero media. Like I see a lot of Jean Grey in the little girl and her psychic abilities and the fact that she's just so powerful and has all this abilities, and just then we go into that Phantom world that what's name he feel like Professor X. And always give her guidance and everything. Oh, you have the power. It's just like the fact that out of nowhere they meet up with the rebels and stuff, and he's like just do the whole backstory of everything. It's like, man, this really just gonna drop all this info right now to set up something that I just don't care about. I don't care about this fight.
Oh
yeah,
I didn't know the fight was happening until he snuck around the fence and started bodying people. I'm like, oh wait, what's going on? I thought he was just leave walking out the village. All of a sudden, we're about to start the major battle, and it was just like, I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, question.
Yep.
Now, Ken, you said you watched the closing and you got a different insight of what they were trying to do. Do you recall what that was?
Like so I started paying more attention to the opening and the closing scene or of the show, and I would say like to try to get as much credit as I can to the creative freedom that he may have had with this, like he's trying to take something historical and tell a lesson, basically, which that we no one can really get the lesson because it's just everything. There's too much he's trying to tell in too little amount of space, and from the opening and the end, I could tell because this is a setup, but it's not well done, and it's way too shallow. But
what did you try to say, Ken?
What's the lesson you thought he was trying to deliver?
That's what I'm still trying to figure out, because I can tell that he's trying to tell me something. He's trying to tell us something, but I don't know what he's trying to tell us. Like,
say something, I'm giving up on you.
Exactly, because that's how I felt after all this. Like, okay, so you're telling me about this black samurai, like a black guy in feudal Japan who became a samurai, Oda Nobunaga, and all of a sudden he, after Nobunaga died, he left that life, and all of a sudden this. What's going on? There's feudal lords, and then there's magic, and there's robots, and there's like this. Okay, let me at least get a sense of what direction you're going first. But then he's like, okay, he's giving a lot of back. It's like it's someone who is telling a story, but they haven't told you exactly what kind of story they're telling you first.
Okay.
And then at the end of it, you're like, okay, they finished the story. So okay, you just gave me something that you want important that to you that you think I should learn, but I don't know what you just told
What
me.
you trying to? Yeah.
A total disconnect. That's unfortunate. Okay. Thank you.
I like didn't even. There was no question even posed. Even like, how can you give an answer when like we don't even know what the question was? Like that's really all right. All right. So I'm not trying to keep this going on too long. So if there's one thing about Yasuke, just one thing you could change about Yasuke, what would it be?
Ooh.
I know.
One thing?
Just one. Just one. Something very specific, because there's a lot that we will all change. I'm just like,
I mean,
what
I
bothers
would
you the
take
most?
I'll take the Yasuke out of it. If we did not have, if it wasn't advertised as hashtag Black Excellence, hashtag the first Black Samurai, and give us like an identity to cling to and to want to get to know, it probably take half the edge off.
Also, remember that this did used to be like the original idea of doing some sort of Yasuke adaptation. It was supposed to be live action. It was supposed to be live action, and it was supposed to be Chadwick Boseman playing Yasuke, but that didn't happen for obvious reasons. So I guess they chose to do animation instead. So, well, that's the impression that I got because, okay. So, you got anything to add to that, Drea?
Yeah, because I think the overall disappointment enough people had is that they probably wasn't looking for a strictly historical biopic, but they wanted to know this person more. And unfortunately, we don't ever get to really know much of Yasuke other than just a couple of flashbacks. Other than that, his identity get obscured just to be the guy to get from point A to point B to point C. He's just your direction to travel, to take this girl from whatever, to meet this final boss that we don't even get to know the name of until like when, episode 4 or 5?
Yeah.
So I'm like, if they take that out of it, then maybe, but there's so many, as in this show, it gives you a lot of content for no sustenance. Way too much. Like, how can you give me something overly saturated, but it's bland?
It's like all that information, what to do with it?
It's like over seasoning some soup and it still tastes like water. How did we get here?
How did we get here?
All right.
Who's next?
Brittany.
I would say, what was the question?
What's one thing, just simply one thing about Yasuke you would change?
One thing about Yasuke I would change is that we need to focus on the history of Yasuke, not all of the story that we're trying to come up with the mechs and the different foreigners that had these different powers and all of these villains that didn't really mean anything to us. Just focus on the history of Yasuke, and I feel like that's what people really want to know. Who knows about a Black samurai in Japan? People that think about Japan, Black people that think about Japan, and I know this just from being a Black person in Japan, nobody knows that Yasuke exists in the Black community besides like people in the arts. So
in weaves, in Black weaves.
Yeah, Black weaves. Barely Black weaves though, but like Black weaves, like we know about the Yasuke, but like people, he is, I feel like because our view of Black people around the world is so narrow, and we think that, oh, only Black people went to America and the Caribbeans and South America. That's not true. Black people are all over the world. And we have a literal, like, specific example of one person that kind of raised in the ranks of like a system, and we don't know about it. This was the opportunity to educate. And like at the end of the day, as an educator, I was like, that was a missed opportunity. And that they dropped the ball by adding all this shit and not giving Yasuke a freaking personality, like just outside of just being a Black guy in Japan.
It was so one-dimensional.
It was so one-dimensional. So that's what I would change. Just focus on just his historical value and the world and let people know who he is.
All right, Ken.
I agree with Brittany on a little bit of that. It's like, because this is really like the first big stage showcase of Yasuke as a historical figure to expose to a lot of people, and to portray him in this sense is like, you're barely portraying him. First of all, like, okay, you're interested. Oh yeah, it's basically like, hey, this is the story of like the of a black samurai, and oh, awesome, and all of a sudden, oh, here's all the other shit. All these, I'm gonna invite some mechs, and I'll tell about a story about this other girl that has powers and everything, and a priest comes along that's a demon. Like, yeah, look, okay. So what about Yasuke? This what's the name of the show? Yasuke. Was the show going on about? Everything else. It's like, it's just what he is, just a boatsman at this point. It's just
Should have just been the boatsman.
Like, yeah, I really didn't. I didn't notice that he died at the end until after he was dead, and I was like, I feel like they really butchered this. Like there's so much promise and so much they could have done with, even just if there were one thing to change, just tell the story of how he became a samurai. So if the first season was just this, if not just backstory, just showcasing, even if it involved mechs, I don't care. But just have that continuity of just having the story of how he became that samurai. That, I feel like that would be enough to at least make it decently good.
What about you, Will?
Damn, what would I change? The narrative, the entire narrative.
Period.
The whole narrative is not what it should have been. Like, if you're gonna do is sort of like pseudo futuristic take on a historical event, people and such. I mean, there's a way to do that. People have done it before. Let's see. Thinking about Seven Samurai. That's one.
Samurai 7.
Samurai 7. That's what I mean.
Yeah, that came to my mind when I watched this. Like,
that's one example of taking like something that is historically that's based in history and like turn it in and bringing like a sort of like a sci-fi feel to it. That's one example. That's a prime example that's coming to mind. I said Afro Samurai. That's another one. The thing, the problem is that while I don't personally have a problem with meshing genres, this one, the way they did this was executed poorly, because it seemed like the flashbacks and the current time of the story that's being told are like so drastically different in terms of setting and aesthetic. Because when you see Yasuke's flashbacks, you don't see fucking mechs or people like changing or anything, any of that shit. And like the only time you even see a bit of magic is like at the last moment when Nobunaga is being taken out. And like historically that happened, but they kind of flipped the way that happened within the context of Yasuke. And so it's just that I was looking at two different animes, and each one of them was mid, when trying to convince me that they were the same anime. I okay, let me put it like this: if I saw the flashbacks, if you presented the flashbacks and like the current story, Yasuke trying to get that spider bitch, trying to take out that spider bitch and shit, if you presented them to me separately, I would think there were two different animes.
Or at least two different seasons.
Two different, not even that, just literally two different
universes.
Two different universes, two different animes.
Did they even bring up magic during his flashback? Now, I know during the war, they launched an attack, and I'm like, oh, we got magic. And other than that, it's not really
magic just suddenly exists for no reason.
Okay.
So yeah, if you told me that if you presented those to me as separate things, I'd be like, oh, this is two different animes, two different mid animes, because clearly the characters aren't fleshed out as well as they should be. I don't have a sense of people's motivations and shit. But Yeah, but if you told me they were the same thing, they were not. It's just I would change the narrative of it, and there's a good chance that I may not have been. I may not. I would have adapted it better. Like it's like either commit to that aesthetic from start to finish, or don't commit to it at all. But just don't introduce it halfway through and expect to be like, oh, this is fine. No, that's not good.
Suspension of disbelief does not work that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it does make me wonder though, because since it's only 6 episodes, like you gotta wonder, maybe it was fleshed out to be for more, where he had more detail, but then all of a sudden there was something in the back end where it was crunched down to 6 and he had to kind of make do with what he had. But even then, like I feel like
I don't know.
at that point he should have maybe switched up what story he was trying to tell.
Hold on.
Okay, I was about to say, yeah, I kind of want to wrap this up now because it's, I mean,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
are there any final thoughts on this? Any last mention? Anything you want to bring up?
I just want to ask one question though, just one question.
Okay.
Okay, so this was approved and greenlit for a reason, and I'm going to assume the reason it was for was blackness. How do you feel about blackness being a marketing tool to create content, whether it's subpar or excellent? This was approved and greenlit for a reason.
This is pandering. I feel like in some cases, it is pandering, and depending on the context of it, I feel like, I don't know, because what happened here was so disjointed and how it told its story and how it portrayed its characters and such. I felt like this was kind of like almost like a glorified PR stunt into some respects. Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel about it. And I've been like, if you look at it, like, you've been seeing a lot of that shit lately. Whether or not either they portray something that's genuine or portray something like especially when you talk about black stories, black people, or just people in color in general, and they try to come out with media and content centered around them. Sometimes it feels like it's pandering. Sometimes it feels like, is this genuine? Is it not? Do you actually care about the group of people that you're trying to represent? Is this just something? It's just like a money grab. It's one of those things you kind of have to be aware of, because just like inclusion doesn't just mean like just portraying us. It means portraying what makes us us. So more or less. Like I have feelings about the whole Black Superman thing, but that's an entire matter altogether.
Yeah, me too.
We're not gonna get into that. Maybe we'll do
at some point. Maybe
we'll do a video on it. I don't know, but yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I definitely think, like, I agree with, it felt a bit pandering, and they found a Black person that's willing to do what they want them to do with the show. I feel like, and that's why I was like, I don't want to be the person that's just criticizing a Black creative with this, because I don't know what Netflix gave him. Maybe they said, hey, you got 6 episodes and you better make this shit interesting. Or damn, I'm not giving you something else. Like, I don't know what type of like contract or deal that he had. And I mean, 6 episodes is really hard to tell a story. Even with just focusing on Yasuke, that's hard. That's a really like low episode count for, and even,
like, they're half-hour long too. If they were hour-long episodes,
it would be different, right? But like, I feel like that also plays a part. It's just like, what story can you give with a 30-minute episode in 6 episodes, or 30 minutes in a 6-episode show? It's
not impossible.
It's not, but that's really difficult, I feel, especially for a person like Yasuke, because this is a span of like years, so I that's why I don't want to like just drag him down.
I feel you.
But yeah, I do,
which is a weird shift, because Cannon Buster had 10 episodes. This only has 6.
Yeah,
I don't know if this
feel
was
like maybe
deliberate or this was the pandemic.
Netflix didn't believe in this type of like content.
That could be to production constraints and shit.
Yeah,
Though.
Yeah.
Really, when it comes to narrative, one of the things you have to learn to play around with is the concept of time, because you can portray that however you want. If you remember Game of Thrones, I hate bringing it up though, but you remember the later episodes, they played around time a lot in terms of his narrative in like the last two seasons.
There's to fly around the world in the same episode.
Yeah. Well,
He'd be in a whole nother country.
That is like a very extreme case. I'm not even counting that. I'm talking about all the general shit in terms of the progression of the narrative. It's not impossible to tell a story in 6 episodes.
I feel like you do have to be slightly talented in your writing. Like you do have to know how to write this to make it feel like it's satisfying for your audience.
No,
and
you just have to be a competent writer. You just have to know.
Yeah, you do. And I don't know if this guy is.
You just have to have a definitive end.
I mean, he created it, but somebody else wrote it. Let's talk.
Is you're given a plate of a certain size. You have to make sure you have the right portion, the right different foods in there. Like if you put a little bit too much of a sample or something, then people want more, but there's no more room for that in there. Like,
but you can always do a preview, something to lead up into that, something that
I'm just gonna say
more to it, but they didn't really do that.
Yeah,
like
Brittany?
Studios just they do really have the last call on everything that's going out. And I know Netflix be giving like deals and shit like to everybody or whatever, but we don't know the behind the scenes. They could have just like, you got 6 episodes, you better
Girl,
make this
especially that Mappa did some rotoscoping on episode 1 and only episode 1. I'm gonna assume there was some kind of production boo-boo. Like what happened to the money?
Yeah, because this is produced by Netflix, so and then they have all these other projects going on, so they probably took the budget off of this towards something else.
Exactly. Right. And like where they put their budgets into. I don't know if you noticed that in their streaming services, but there's certain movies they put more budget into than other things. So we just don't know the behind the scenes of it. That's why I don't want to bag on this guy, but I do think if you know you have 6 episodes, then you probably should have focused it more on just the history of Yasuke.
That's what I was kind of getting on when I saw you were saying about how I saw the opening endings. Like I could see the world building and the
potential.
Potential that he has, that he wants to introduce, but he doesn't have the time.
So like I said, 2 different animes in one show, and you could say, and honestly, either one of them could have been told within 6 episodes, in my opinion. And that's just me. I'm not trying to rag on them either though, but I'm trying to. Well, you probably can't tell, but I'm not trying to, but I'm trying to be as damn. I can't even think the word of it now. That's how fucking gone I am. I'm
trying to be self-reflective, but I'm like, we all wanted this to be successful.
Yeah, we all.
I mean, the only reason why I might sound
that's it. I'm trying to be as subjective as I possibly can, but yeah, man, it's like. Yeah, it's one of those two, either the historical basis of Yasuke or the whole magic shit. Either one of those things could have been told in 6 episodes, but doing them together, it just didn't work well, because neither one of them were given the time to be fleshed out properly and to be conveyed properly to the audience. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. But we all wanted this to be great. It's just the only reason I might sound a bit more critical because I watched Cannon Busters and I'm seeing a pattern of a narrative problem. I just don't want him out in these streets being a Tyler Perry of anime.
Wow.
Damn.
But that could happen though. Hollywood choose one black person and be like, well, you do this and you stay doing
the representative.
This. Yes, literally. And I don't want him to be the anime representative.
And then on top of that, just giving us half-baked content. Consistently.
You gotta fight for it. If that's the case, that Netflix is just like, well, you only get 6 episodes, you better make that shit work. Then you better make that shit the best shit that ever came out on Netflix. You better put your all into this shit. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Yeah.
If that is the final thought, I think now would be a good time to end this video. Let us know what your comments about Yasuke down below if you're watching this. But yeah, that's the video. Echo 4. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, follow us. Chances are this will be on the podcast as well. The link to that should be down as well. But yeah, this is Echo 4 signing off. Deuces.
Deuces.